Today on the Brand Study, we are talking with Kirk Hensler. He's the founder of Hale Productions, which is a premium creative studio behind some incredible brands such as Ninja Kitchen, Fjällräven, Mattel, and the Barbie brand, and Shark Homes. Kirk's background is actually really scrappy. He started out taking any photography gig that he could find, such as sports games, events, weddings, and sometimes getting paid as little as $300 a day. But over time, he's been able to turn that hustle into a scalable business that's really producing content for some of the best brands in the world. Fast forward now, Hale Productions is a full-service studio, and it's built to help these consumer brands scale. They have an in-house team, they have their own production space, and they handle everything from lifestyle photography, videography, and ad creatives for platforms like Meta, TikTok, and Amazon. In this episode, we're going to dive into what it actually takes to make content that converts, how brands can get more from their production workflow, and how AI and automation are starting to change the way creative teams operate. Kirk, thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome to the Brand Study.
Thanks for having me. I like the intro. I'm going to bring you on my sales calls with clients going forward.
Of course. No, Hale Productions really is. You all really do some incredible work. I'd love to just get a quick background and hear from you firsthand about what you all do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, present day, we're full service production agency. We do concepting, shot list generation, sourcing, talent, locations, props, full art department, full creative department, actual shoot execution. And so we focus on mostly direct to consumer brands, stuff people are buying every day. You name some of our big clients. So we handle production there, lifestyle and product, photo and video for usually commercial use, paid ads on social or streaming or something to that effect. Primarily are in the digital space. And then post-production. So we have a editing team that edits all of those assets. I know we're going to talk about it later, but there are many, many deliverables that clients are asking for these days. So we have an in-house team that's really super in that regard as well. So yeah, that's where we're at now. We're very lucky to be where we are, considering we came from, like you said, pretty much, scrappy, nothing, no background, no education, just a camera and, some curiosity. So it's been a pretty cool ride.
It's incredible. I've been following your story for a couple of years now on social and just seeing how you've been able to expand and grow and add so much more value to the process. It's super inspiring. And I'd love to hear what you're kind of hearing from your clients right now. What are the biggest pain points that your consumers are coming to you for?
It really depends on what kind of level you're at, in your agency and your clients and things like that. I think speaking to the majority of the population, which is, owner operators who are still actively shooting or editing, are very hands-on, heavily involved, probably working on productions in the, $500 to $5,000 range. I think those are really ridiculously difficult because the expectation for content that clients need, they're so high and it's borderline unreasonable. Our situation is a little bit different. We're in the, we don't really take anything on at this point under like 25K. It's regular for us to do 6-figure productions every month. And in that conversation, you have more room to kind of make it work and negotiate. But I think all clients can universally agree that the amount of content needed to push a product into a sale continues to grow, and the kind of diversity and variation. It used to be you could shoot, sizzle something really beautiful and cut it down vertically and throw it on social and you were ahead of the game. And now every platform needs native looking content, which means multiple camera rigs, multiple, editing styles, different propping, different talent demographics. So clients are just coming to us and to other agencies and expecting us to kind of answer every single question. Realistically, it probably should be divvied out amongst multiple agencies who specialize in all different types of content. So tricky business right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the full service component comes in, is that you're handling basically from start to finish.
Yep. Yeah, and just delivering in so many aspect ratios. I think for me, I am like I'm a creative at heart for sure, but I show up every day in the company as kind of a business operator, and so I'm just looking at how to solve problems for clients. I'm not necessarily like obsessing over the creative because the difference between the best photographer and the 500th best photographer is so close. The creative is so close. So many talented people are out there creating, and so I really try and focus on answering questions the clients are asking and solving problems and positioning our company as one that can adjust and answer to this new age of content, which is minimum 3 aspect ratios per piece of content you're shooting that's going to live on, at least 3 platforms.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that's one of the biggest changes is that clients need a higher volume of assets, more format variety, quicker turnaround times?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And then the uniqueness of content within platforms, which is really tricky. I mean, we're messing around with, rigging multiple cameras together into one package, an iPhone, a prosumer, and then a full cinema camera, and seeing if we can kind of make things work all in one instead of having to run through our shot list multiple times for additional capture. So that's kind of the biggest thing I'm noticing at the moment.
I see so many times that creative and actually getting content has been a real pain point for brands, really of all sizes. I've been a part of brands in-house that are flush with cash, flush with talent. It seems to always be a roadblock, regardless if they have in-house talent or an agency on retainer. There seems to always be some sort of bottleneck when it comes to creative, and love to kind of hear why you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. The bigger the company, the more cooks in the kitchen, as they say. And so we have seen situations where, maybe brand is really excited about something, but the marketing team has a different story that they want to tell. Well, then production has to figure out how to kind of merge those two deals, and then legal might chime in and say, actually, we can't say any of this. And so by the time you get to storyboards, it's been diluted so heavily because it's not just about content. And you'll see some of the influencer and travel content creators, which they're out there doing their thing, but they're not operating in a world with the ramifications that agencies are, where you have to deal with multiple teams, multiple department heads, differing opinions, different timelines, not getting information as quickly as you need to, and then having to rush into production to meet deadlines. All of those things create incredible strain on the creative, and it makes it suffer. And unfortunately, unless you're forecasting your content out the full year in advance, it's really hard to stay on top of it because, like we're dealing with now, all of a sudden we have crazy import tariffs on some of these companies that rely on that. And so now they're looking to, how do we do more with our inventory we already have stateside while also forecasting for how to deal with like this increase in pricing, and we have to create new content around that. So there's so much happening at once. It's really difficult for people to get information to production in time to make something super compelling. So long story short, it's hard to be organized. It really is.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. And I think also once you are on the production side, as a consumer, it's you kind of take it for granted. If you're, scrolling Instagram, you see an ad, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But everything that actually goes into it from concept, ideation, storyboarding. So I'd actually love to hear from start to finish a little bit how you all get creative and assets out for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts with onboarding, of course. And so we have our initial correspondence. That might be a discovery call or just an email, depending on how organized, the potential client is. And so we'll get some kind of information, some brief, some deck, kickoff call, talk about things, and then we work to a project scope. So we might send out a proposal. Bigger clients already have budget and scope done. That's kind of the interesting flip. At some level, you're like using their contracts, their legal structure, their creative process. You know what I mean? You're plugging into their ecosystem because they're massive. And so it's a weird distinction. It's an interesting thing, but in some way or another, there has to be a kickoff call. There has to be kind of project scope that's agreed upon. We get people into contract. We obviously won't do anything without being in contract. No bro deals, no handshakes. Like everything's got to be, signed, sealed, delivered. So once that's all locked in, we go into creative. And so that's kind of, initially we'll do a treatment. So just kind of a general mood board. Like here's the visuals, here's the lighting, here's kind of the style, here's maybe some reference content that we like. And we work on that. We do wireframes where we look at the logistics, like, okay, how are we going to execute this shoot? Is it 1 day? Is it 2 days? Is it in studio, location, all these different things? And all of that funnels into our production deck, which is just like usually a 40 plus page document that has everything: call times, contact information, talent, props, wardrobe, mood, lighting, all these different things consolidated. And then every single shot on the storyboard has a dedicated slide with, we're pretty neurotic about timing. That's like what we deliver is like, we're pretty reliable. And so 10 minutes for this establishing shot. This is going to be on a dolly. We're going to start medium. We're going to finish close up. And then we're going to transition into this shot, that shot, boom, boom, boom. We go through all that. Obviously during this process, we're engaging with the client. If they're super hands-on, we'll do like a weekly check-in call. If we've worked with them a bunch and they love us and trust us, we just kind of send them emails like, hey, here's where we're at. Maybe we'll attach a loom to it to kind of walk through. And then we get into production. Those are hard days. Those are long days. You're on set 10, 12, 14 hours. As I mentioned to you earlier, like we're on set 15 days this month, which is psychotic. And I don't even really know where to start thinking about how to stay on top of all that. But you have the process and you trust it. And, you have your checklists and your software and all these things you're using. So we shoot and then we go into delivery, which usually looks like a couple quick test edits, client feedback. We're doing selects on set if we're doing stills, which is important, like real time 4-starring things. Then getting approvals on test edits, and then we work into post production, which is we get to rough cut 1, client feedback, rough cut 2, client feedback. Then you start mixing, adding sound, adding VO, all these different things. Getting into the final buttoned up version, delivering it, poof, gone, and then already we're probably in pre-pro for like 5 more projects. So
Yeah, so just hearing that process from start to finish for a brand to take that on in-house, because I hear so many times that, in-house is becoming more and more popular nowadays, depending on the size of the company.
I mean, it's popular because it's cost saving, but yeah.
It's cost saving, but the logistics, the organization, the gear alone, I mean, it might be cost savings over a 5-year period, but there's definitely an investment with talent, people, time, gear, space, just people who understand the process. So like, yeah, I feel like it's really helpful to hear that from start to finish. And Hale, you all actually have a designated studio space called Influence Studios, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I own another company called Influence Studios. I started in COVID when they kind of limited the amount of people that could be on set. I was like, we need an answer for high quality content without having huge crews. And so I kind of designed and built out this warehouse concept where we, build out sets, kitchens, living rooms, bedroom, bathroom, a cyc wall, product table, kind of flex spaces. We built a coffee bar in one of ours. And then we threw up the grid. We put commercial lighting up in there, did an aperture system, hooked it up with the app so everything can be controlled from an iPad. So you literally could walk in there, flip the switch on, and shoot like bang bang commercial content. And so I have one in San Diego, and then I have another one in Los Angeles. And so Hale will use those studios to shoot some of our larger productions, and then we also have a little satellite studio in North Park, 2 blocks from my house. So I get to walk to work most of the time. We use that as our office and meetings, and we got a little baby cyc wall in there, kitchen, and a living room set. So yeah, we're predominantly studio focused. Maybe 20% we're on location.
Yeah, that's very cool. And if you think of a brand was trying to bring all creative in-house, what do you think they would need to do in terms of investment, team size, infrastructure, and what would they actually need to pull it off successfully?
Yeah, I mean, we work with so many agencies that have in-house creative and everything, and what they usually do is hire one person and tell them to kind of handle everything, which is like very difficult. Production people are like restaurant people in the fact that they're a rare breed. Like this is a physically, mentally, emotionally demanding industry, and so for the start, you need, shooter editors. Like that's the core basis to build people that can shoot and edit. That's like such an incredible hire. Someone that understands lighting. We have all these people who can shoot natural light all day. Great, congratulations. But like you need to be able to create compelling imagery in studio by shaping light. That's like a non-starter if you're trying to be a proper agency and work with bigger clients. And so getting this shooter editor is really important, understands light, understands production, understands schedule, equipment, etc. And then a producer. Probably you could hybrid and do a creative producer, somebody that can put together the visuals, the decks, the boards, but then also build that into a schedule. um, if you had this kind of like scrappy core team to start, and then after that, I would contract out certain roles for certain things, and depending on your industry, if you're in apparel, fashion, makes sense to have an in-house stylist. If you're doing specifically food stuff, then you'd want a photographer with the food styling history. Like you could cater it, but your shooter editors and your producers are absolute staples in production. And again, you can layer on top of that as much as you want. Do you want a dedicated creative director? Do you want a dedicated stylist? Do you want, a stills a retoucher? Do you want a motion editor? Like you can start to scale out from there, but that's where I would start.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. I think there's an argument to be made. Brands might think in the short term there's cost savings, but I think in the long term, you have full-time employees. You're still going to be renting probably expensive locations, upwards of $1,000 an hour per
Yeah.
shoot. Expensive talent that you're going to have to book for each shot. Handling it all, it's like thinking like, oh yeah, I can go and change my oil. Next thing you know, it takes you 8 hours. You're covered in oil, and you
Yeah.
save $50. But so I feel like being able to rely on a company like Hale Productions to just know that they're in good hands, know that it's going to be done from start to finish, and at the same time then free up time and bandwidth internally to actually then focus on other problems. So, have Hale marching in the same direction as internal teams, and you all meet at the end. I just really wanted to kind of touch on this internal agency debate that's kind of in flux currently, and I think there's a lot of ways to cut it up. I think it depends on the size of the brand too.
Yeah, and I think the correct word is bandwidth. Obviously, if you have the time resources to invest in a team that knows proper production, go for it. I mean, we have certain clients come to us over and over and just want to do like ecom, and I'm like, we're charging 10 grand to shoot these white, seamless backdrop photos that you could hire someone direct for a fraction of that. So in some cases, it's like, you know, it makes a ton of sense to go in house. But if you're going for large scale production that's going to live in a world that is responsible for selling your product and you're going in house, like you better hire people who understand production and creative. And if not, like I get it, agencies can be kind of shysters. We try and separate ourselves from the like we're like creative geniuses, we're one of a kind, whatever. No, we're just like we listen, we pay attention, we execute, we are able to integrate in your process. We're in, some of our clients project management software. We have all these external channels on Slack. Like we're integrating and building. I'll hire dedicated producers for certain clients if their needs are excessive so that they can like really get inside their system. So if you find agencies that are flexible, and not egotistical, like there's no better partnership. But I do also understand like sometimes agencies just don't listen. They charge, and we're pretty flexible about like if scope changes a little bit and you're a partner of ours, like we're not going to hammer you. We'll charge you hard costs. We'll be incremental. We'll be reasonable. But some other agencies, it's like, uh, change order, like double rush, triple rush. Like, yeah, I get it why people don't want to work with them. That's a tough world to be in. And at the same time, they have to protect themselves from clients who don't respect their time either. So you got to find the right fit. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like this really segues perfectly into AI, workflow automation, and how you all are leveraging AI, how you see your clients leveraging AI, and how you think AI is really fitting into the workflow today, next year, and 5 years from now.
Yeah. I I try to differentiate myself from the founder meme that's just like everyday new software going to the team and be like, hey, I just found out about Apollo. Hey, I just found out about this. Like, oh, we're going to implement this. And last year I was heavily researching like what is going to be helpful. Like, what are we going to be able to use? And right now, at the level we're producing, it's not super beneficial to us. Like the generative AI stuff and the retouching, it's just not good enough. Like it's not good enough for a high cost shoot for a big name client. You know, you have to go through the proper channels. Certain people in the industry expect things to be done a certain way. And even if AI could help them or move things forward, like it takes years to integrate change. So I think on some level, you know, like we use like read.ai for note taking on all of our meetings, and that's super helpful because it transcribes and summarizes. And if my creative director can't be on a call, I can send him a transcript plus a readout and like summary, and he can update without me having to do a side meeting. Like that's actual time saving. That's actually helpful. But we've dabbled with a bunch of these storyboard AI, you know, softwares and stuff, and they're just silly. They don't work to the level that you need. Like if you need sketches and specific frames, you know, it's taking all the information that exists, but it's not solving a unique problem for you. So we integrated a little bit with like lead generation again and like kind of scraping for contacts and stuff like that. If we're doing like a bunch of outbound marketing, we might use it for SEO optimization and some back end stuff, which I think is super helpful. But in terms of like how it impacts our production, and like I can't give Chat GPT our schedule and say like, hey, how should we schedule this? Like they don't know the nuance of changing setups from overhead to straight on 45, do the dollies first and then come back around. Like, do you prioritize location? Do you prioritize talent? None of that stuff can be at the moment helped with the type of content that we are creating. So I see it more valuable in the back end admin kind of summaries, inbox cleaning, maybe concept generation, like, hey, we need to sell this cooler. We're shooting at the beach. Like, what would be something fun that we could do? Like, maybe. But and I'm not anti AI. Like, if it helped, I would use it in 5 seconds. We just haven't found the right fit for us just yet. As far as the future goes, I mean, it's only going to get better. It's already, getting better. So I can see it being an integral part of our workflow for post production, for photo retouching, specifically for product photos that don't have like a ton of nuance, and for portraits. Like there's already some software you can go in and be like, take the wrinkles away, do this, do that. That's awesome. So I can see there being more integration there. And maybe, some clients will stop doing studio photography because some of the software that exists for like, here's my product now, have it at the beach, have it at the park. It's not bad, it's not terrible. So I think it will get into our industry in a medium significant way, but I think it's going to be 10 years before it's like commonplace.
I think it also depends on, like you said, the level of expectation of the final deliverable. I think right now, like very small to medium sized brands or startups or freelancers, they're kind of getting into it because the expectation of quality just isn't at that level. I mean, you're doing 6-figure contracts. Like if you're, if you throw that into a chat GPT image generator and the color is one hex tone off, you're like, well, like that's not acceptable. Like it's got to
Yeah,
be spot on.
right. And when you're delivering source files and project files, and it's like, oh, how did you retouch? It's a good question. I will always be interested in, ways to make work easier. Trust me, if I didn't have to work at all, I wouldn't. I'm one of those people, if I hit the lottery, like I'm gone tomorrow, selling the company, I'm out. So I would love it. And curious if, other people in the industry are having true success with it, outside of some of the admin stuff and some of the lead gen stuff. So yeah, I'm all ears in this world, but I haven't seen anything so far that's been like we're out of business or wow, this is going to save me like considerable time.
Interesting. Yeah, it's more focused on the administration side, note taking, back end. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of where it's at. And I'd love to kind of hear like what is working, like in terms of trends, like creative hooks, formats, styles. What are you seeing as delivering the strongest performance for clients right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really platform specific, right? And so it feeling authentic to the platform is really critical and like being kind of generationally appropriate. Like if you're an insurance company or a car dealership and you're trying to go on TikTok, like the demographic on TikTok skews much younger. They're scrolling right through unless you're finding a way to tap into trends. If you're able to stay on trend there, you'll do well. For our own social, which we work with an awesome, agency partner and shoot a little bit in house, we're always just trying to like do fun stuff. And so our message is we could blast you and spam you with like all this amazing content we've shot for all these awesome brands, but we more so focus on just being like likable, relatable, kind of current. And so you'll see most of our socials are BTS, with some like skits mixed in. And because it's fun. And so I think at the core, what what converts, what translates is authenticity and being platform specific. You really, really, really can't get away with shooting high end content on TikTok. If you're a brand, you gotta pay attention to what is working out there. I think like hooks and these things are nice. I think all the ASMR and the food aesthetic, all these things are really great. And I think format length is proven to be kind of irrelevant. You can do stuff that's super short and now you can do stuff super long. I mean, people are talking about streaming, cable, all these things going away in favor of, user generated content, YouTube, long form, live stream. So, what's working, what isn't, it's like this conversation that spins around and around and around. You just have to be genuine. No one likes to be sold to outright and directly. I think that's a pretty compelling piece of information is like stick to the features, stick to the benefits, don't try and sell. We just shot 9 concepts for a pizza oven for Ninja. And we just really focused on the pizza looking like amazing. And so we're pulling stuff out fresh, bubbling cheese, sizzles, and things like that, getting close ups of the details, getting sound effects of, like rolling the slicer across. But you have to open with some hook, which is like, 3 pizzas under 10 minutes. And everyone's like, what? Okay. And so we'll shoot it like a normal storyboard, traditional kind of hero establish, story, and then close. And then we'll edit it kind of out of order and find the most compelling shot, put that up front, put text on screen that is a headline, and then go back into the story. And that seems to be the most impactful. And it doesn't feel too try hard. Like it's still cool, like classic storytelling. You're just kind of flipping the edit around a little bit and experimenting a little more, with headlines and hooks and different things like that.
That really seems to make sense logically. And do you think that same philosophy applies for paid media? Like when you look at brands, they're constantly looking at ROAS, return on advertising spend. Do you think it's a similar concept?
For paid stuff, we do shoot a little more high end. Um, Instagram, Meta stuff. we will shoot like on prosumer, like C70, C80. So we'll shoot in 4K, we'll shoot on full frame cinema cameras, but we won't like light it to be epic. We won't make it look like studio. We'll rely a little bit more on like single light source or natural light. And so we have that kind of like, because you have to understand like ROAS are important in one regard, but owned media from the brand, paid media is also a brand story. So like the aesthetic is still important because there has to be differentiation from the brand. And so you might use your UGC TikTok stuff and influencer marketing stuff to like really convert. That might be converting better right now. It probably is. And then you might use some of your paid media owned, branded stuff as more of establishing content, and maybe the conversions are less, but the kind of compelling visuals and consistency within the brand ecosystem is more important in that world. So if a client comes to you and says, I'm going to make one ad and it has to convert, like, run, because you can't. So let's shoot a few different things a few different ways and let's A/B test everything. That's how people are doing it. That's how big brands do it. We might shoot 9 concepts and have 3 different headline variations, 3 different cut down lengths, and 3 different aspect ratios, and all of that's going to run until there's a winner. That's not uncommon. It's not sexy, but like it's the best, biggest brands, agencies, whatever. That's how they do it. So you have to kind of find why you're making that piece of content and just do the best you can for that reason, instead of thinking obsessively every single thing has to convert, out through the roof, because not everything will, but it might make someone think like, wow, that was really nice. Oh wow, that brand does really nice stuff. And then when an influencer they follow posts it on TikTok later, then boom, there's the conversion. That credit goes towards the TikTok ad, but the first impression might have been made, from the paid media. So it's definitely a process.
Yeah, and that really comes back to the old marketing theory that it takes 21 touch points, 21 brand interactions to actually make a conversion. So where that advertising fits within that consumer journey might be more upstream, but kind of ticked off that consumer interest. It also brings off, the debate of performance marketing versus brand marketing and how you balance that in a paid format as well. So I thought that's really interesting.
Yeah, and if you're, a smaller company or kind of solopreneur, like navigating those conversations with clients, you know, I've gotten to the point in my career where I'm not afraid to go to someone and be like, "Hey, this is impossible. Like this isn't going to work." And I'd rather say that and not get the job than get hired and do a shitty job and, have bad reputation or whatever. And so understanding like what the goal is of certain pieces of content and like how to build a more robust marketing strategy is super helpful information. If you're just in production, you might just kind of be responding to the, whatever your client's saying, like make this. But, the more you can educate yourself on how to just tell a story. And so at the baseline, again, if you're in that 500 to 5K content creation range, like just have a baseline outline of how to tell a story. Like, how do I get the hook? How do I, pose the question? How do I provide, the answer? Like, what is the minimum amount of knowledge you can have to be a compelling storyteller? And like, then just start to hone in on that as you build more knowledge the more clients you work with. You understand what's converting. And we always follow up with our clients. Hey, what converted, what didn't? Like when we do a new project, we debrief the old project. What are the highlights? What were the best performers? What were the worst performers? Should we bring more color in? Should we do less color? So we're very involved in that conversation, but we have to seek it out. They're not just giving that to us, because that's like, whole different kind of department and group and conversation way downstream post production. So yeah, you gotta be educated.
Yeah. For a solopreneur starting a new consumer brand, do you have maybe one piece of advice for them from a creative perspective on how they should proceed?
So yeah, what, you're launching skincare or hydration supplements or something? You're just like, you're trying to get in the game somewhere.
Trying to get in the game.
Yeah, I think this is dependent on the type of person you are. Like, usually fall into, one or two buckets. You're the creative and you're just like all about brand and the aesthetic and like all these beautiful images. And then there are kind of operators who are logistics focused and know how to build things, on the back end. Um, for me, I think you have to have like a robust, well thought out back end strategy so that your customer experience is absolutely flawless. I think that is like the most important thing, and that's what people remember forever. And so I like to focus on building that first, and then you can roll out like the wonderful creative and work with partners, or if you can shoot, go for it. But if you're just like going all content, all brand, UGC, paid influencer, all this stuff, and then you start getting people to your website and there's not a clear course of action when you land on the landing page, if there's not an easy and wonderful experience to transact, like all of that noise dies, and then what you're left with is a business that's not easy to integrate with. So I think save all the epic brand stuff for after you've laid out the back end, and then yeah, partner with people who can create the look and feel that you want, and let them rip. Give them the resources and tools to create the content that's gonna help you sell tons and tons of products and hopefully retire and move to Europe. That's my goal. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. I think that's amazing advice. Well, Kirk, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Brand Study. You dropped some serious knowledge, some amazing value. So really appreciate you joining me today.
Hey, thanks, Sam. I appreciate you having me, and yeah, good luck, and love to do it again sometime.